So far and away, see the bird as it flies by, gliding through the shadows.
Hello, Aaron.
Hey, how you
You're
doing?
the next person up to join me here on at the front end. So we're at round 3 now. Are we
Yep.
starting to see some names emerge that you expected, or are we still too early for that yet?
We're a little bit early. We're seeing, so we've had obviously a lot of players that won their regionals would have had a bye through round 1. So we're
So
at
is
start
that
around.
how that works? So if
Yeah.
you won your regional,
If you won your regionals, you got a bye. Those were the only ways to get buys into this tournament.
Right,
So yeah, basically. Winning a tournament got you
like a
free
win.
pass
Yeah,
through round
right.
1.
Okay.
So we've had players play one live round, and our top-tiered players, I guess, play one round, and we've had the rest of the field play 2 rounds. So we're still kind of figuring it out.
Still a while away before we got a thing. But up next we have Nicholas versus Adam.
So Nicholas is.
Do we need to switch names? Or?
No.
No,
This
we're
is
good?
correct.
Cool.
Nicholas is from my home store.
Yeah.
This is my store.
Go on. Throw
Gamezilla.
it out there.
He's wearing the Team Gamezilla shirt. Good guy, level 1 judge, magic background. His opponent is Adam Harris, who is from Wollongong. He plays at Wollongong Good Games. Very
you're in
good
New South
player
Wales
as well.
as well?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Both magic backgrounds. Both have been in card games for a long while. Very experienced. One of them has an awesome beard. The other does not. So 1 point for Wollongong.
Well, to be fair, like a lot of Final Fantasy, I mean, beards aren't exactly a common thing in the Final Fantasy universe, so...
No, and not impressive ones like the one that we can see on screen from this overhead view.
We are getting a little bit of face in it as well, which actually I don't mind. I'm actually on board for it. We can see how angry they're getting or how upset they're getting.
We can see how angry one of the two players gets.
Yeah. So you've had a look through their decks. Like, do you know what are we kind of play style are we expecting out of them?
Okay, so Nicholas is playing a control deck, basically Golbez control, one of the big decks kind of in the room. He's got Shinotos, which are basically like a Wrath kind of effect, get rid of all the guys in play, come with a big cost of 7 to do that, 7 crystal points, which discarding a card gives you 2 crystal points, so 3 cards, and
You've got to have a bit in reserve before you can
you've got to
pop
have a
that
few
one.
cards. Even if you just play it naturally onto the board, you still need to have 5 backups plus a discard. So it's always going to cost you resources, but it gets rid of all the forwards, and then
It's a good reset. If it's all a bit too much, he goes, "Nah, screw this. Let's just get it done."
Yeah,
So.
and then has some synergy with other cards in his deck. Adam's begun very aggressively.
Straight into a cloud.
Straight into a cloud. He looks like he's on a faster fire deck. So we've got a control versus an aggro kind of matchup going on here.
Similar to our last match, we had Niels was playing basically full attack. He only had forwards, and it was just interesting to see the difference there.
So the 2-drop is part of a combo. So basically the Golbez return the creature that's on the battlefield, so it has the ability when it's in the grave. It has like multi-tiered ability that it can do each turn when it's in play, and it's kind of the big card that's really fueling Nicholas's deck, alongside all these like little creatures that are a type that it gets to return each turn. So it's like a virtual card advantage at every turn. He's getting a card.
So he's
back,
always getting that. Yeah, he's always in that tiny little advantage, and it also helps, like you say, if he does have to pull Wrath, if he's got cards coming in, he should just be able to go pop. And
so he's trying to hold out the early game until he gets to that kind of Golbez kind of range, and then just keep returning cards. If you can keep that alive, generally that engine is just +1 card every turn alongside big guys, and you just start locking people out of games. We've got early backups on the field. We're just setting up our board state right now for both players.
So I guess both players are kind of relying on a particular setup to get away with. Like, so is Adam then going to do the same thing where he has an ideal situation that he wants to be in, or is he's a little bit more flexible in that sense?
I think he's trying to create some early damage and put some pressure on and really not let Nicholas set up his board state. So we've just had a Maria dumped on the table. Maria gives plus 1,000 to all your forwards.
Right.
So it's the only one that works like that. The rest of the ones are specific to their color.
Okay.
So they give like lightning forwards plus 1,000, or they give,
Like a
earth forwards.
specific-
Yeah, they give
yeah,
a
yeah.
specific type. Whereas Maria costs 4, the rest costs 3,
Yeah.
and she gives a wider range of where she's giving
So she gives
plus
that health
advantage to the
buff, yeah.
board. Yeah,
Well,
that
the
health
power
and
level up, yeah.
it's both sides
Yeah.
because attack and power are in the one stat.
So if obviously they do count as health and stuff, and Sam was saying before that it will stack based, like you will accumulate damage. Does that affect their ability to attack, or is it still always kind of the same thing?
No, it doesn't affect their ability to attack. It's just giving them more weapons.
Yeah.
It's just giving them. Think of it like a glorious anthem.
Yep. Okay.
All of your dudes are now bigger as long as that backup remains in play. So we've just had some trade of some resources and some spells.
A bit of back and forth, no damage yet. So it's a much more, I don't know, compared to our last few games, which was just blow-ups at the start. This has been a bit more of they're setting up for something, you know what I mean? It seems like there's a little bit more contemplation going on.
Yep. Typically, I find with Maria, you typically want it to come out later in the game when you've already got some backups on
Yep.
the field, so that you're not paying lots of resources to get it out, because paying 2 cards, it's card advantage or card disadvantage the
Yep.
more that you play for backups. So typically most backups cost 2, and so you want to discard 1 card to get them out, or then you want to be playing them free as the game goes on off your other backups. When you have to really pay a lot of resources into a card, it's not
It's
not as good. So
Well,
it's kind of better to set up your 2-drop backups, then set up your 4-drop backups.
Yeah.
Set up your bigger guys as the game goes on, and you don't have to spend the same
You
amount
want to
of
build,
resources.
you want to build to that point where you can actually justify the expenditure kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like early on, it's a bit tougher to do.
Yeah, the only limitation that's around that is at the end of each turn you discard back down to 5 cards.
Yeah.
So you can't just like stockpile
Yeah,
infinite
yeah.
cards. You are forced into action.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're using the special ability of Cloud to get rid of the Earth Forward, and we've had first damage.
So that is our first damage on the board. Be interesting now to see what Nicholas does. So what's our other backup that Nicholas has on the board at the moment there?
Let me see. It's a bit hard to see. It may be an Aerith. It's so foily.
Yeah. It's just very shiny, and that's some kind of Moogle, I assume.
Yep, a Moogle that. Let me bring him up.
So 2 damage there now to Nicholas.
So at the moment, while Nicholas sets up his backups, he's probably going to take a little bit of damage off the board until he evens it up with a forward that can stand in front of Cloud. Cloud has Brave, so it has the ability to attack and then use its special ability before the blockers come in.
So Brave is basically... It gets
Brave
that-
is
the two-
Vigilance.
Yeah, okay, yeah, cool. If we're going to do those analogies, it's much easier to do it that way. So
Yeah, well, if there's a crossover of people understanding one game and the other, then it makes sense to explain things in a nature that, this card is like this card. So that's our Golbez, a big player for Nick, has entered the battlefield.
and this is what he was waiting for. I think he's got a few in his deck of this. So
Yeah, he's got a full play set of them. So this is his card that kind of has multiple modes, and they're all kind of good, and it's kind of the centerpiece of his deck.
yeah,
And so we've seen the attack just happen, and then the special ability, which breaks it forward. So it is discard, pay 3 crystal points, and discard another cloud, and then it's choose 1 forward and break it. So
so he smashed it straight
so
out.
he's used all his resources, his 3 backups, as well as a cloud to blow away a 5-drop, which, you know, is pretty good. It's what he wants to be doing because he's keeping ahead on the tempo while he's constantly causing incremental damage.
Yep, yep. And I guess it's also that case of I guess he knows that's what Nicholas is trying for. So the more that he can deny him that, the better it is as far as spacing, I think. And we've got a second one up as well.
Yep. And the idea of not putting too many forwards in play also stops the Wrath from being that effective.
Yep.
So when Nicholas does play a Shinodo, if he's only trading with one creature, then that might not be the best trade-off for him.
Yep.
So just in case another cloud, Nick starts needing to extend his hand. If he doesn't extend his hand, he can't stop these constant hits coming in. If he loses another Golbez, I'd imagine that's quite a bad situation for him to be in at this.
And so I guess the other thing as well is so you see there's 2 clouds there, but they're different in the sense that they may not necessarily like you guys have different styles of play depending on which one you get. Is that how that works, or?
So the different forwards that have the same name can be used for the special effects of each other because they are essentially...
Well, they're still the same
They're the same name, so they can be used for those effects.
Right, yeah.
But they serve different roles, and one might be stronger, one might be weaker. One might serve as being... You can only play 3 copies of a card, so they serve as being like the 4th and 5th copy of a card in your deck so that you have more ability to throw into the special abilities. And generally speaking, the special abilities of the cards are pretty powerful.
Yep.
Like breaking a forward for 3 crystal points and getting to swing through after it's pretty good. You know, I think it's where you want to be.
So I mean, it's because that is another interesting thing here, the fact that they are still, you know, for all intents and purposes the same character, but you can use them in different play styles. You know what I mean? Like it's a very unique kind of thing. We've got another card down there from Adam.
So I think that's his one-off Rubicon. Let's have a look.
I'm going to guess based on reading, is that Emperor something? Could that be Emperor Zunde?
Yeah, looks like it.
I guess the other big thing there for Adam is he's got 9,000 and 8,000 power levels on his 2 forwards. That's if he wants to use them to block, that's pretty good defense against what Nicholas has.
Okay, so when Zunde attacks, it gets to deal 5,000 damage to an opponent's forward.
Yeah.
So if you can line that up with a few other effects, it's pretty good. When it's put from the field into the break zone, it deals 9,000 damage. So it has kind of ability to die and really smack something out of the park.
Yeah. So he's the Emperor's gone back into his hand and he's taken a point of damage. So
Cool.
Am I tracing that correctly? I think
Yep.
that's what's happened. Yeah. So again, I will confess now that I'm a complete noob at this. So Aaron is carrying me on technical knowledge. But it's been interesting to see how the different ways this game plays, and yet sometimes it's still reasonably familiar. You know.
Yep. So we're currently now setting up board, and we're moving into if this Golbez can't be dealt with, it's going to start causing problems. The Golbez also gets a reduction in its cost based upon having multiple of the creatures that it can return in its graveyard. So in the early games, it's trying to trade off resources to cheapen its big dude, and then get him out, and then start taking over the game. So the longer that Golbez stays on the table, is the more trouble Adam's going to find himself in, I suspect.
Yeah, he a bit of a resigned sigh there. So I wonder if he does have anything that can actually do the job here. So is there a way to remove an opponent's backups off the board, or is it...
Yes, there are. So Nicholas has access to 3 archers in his backups, and so that's a green backup, a 2-cost backup that costs double green resources, double green crystal points to break it. So it goes away, and you get to break one of their backups.
Okay, so that's one of those good sacrificial units when there's a particular like backup / support that's causing trouble.
Sometimes you also get points where you can deny people crystal color.
Yeah.
And then by denying them the crystal color, they have to start spending cards from their hand, or you force them to restart that setup of resources. So sometimes you can deny people in different ways.
Adam's setting up for something here. Doing the math.
So Golbez is reduced by 2 for each job Archfiend, which the yellow creature on the play and a lot of his other creatures are going to be Archfiends, and he's trying to sacrifice them in the early game. His abilities are choose one forward, dole it, deal all forwards, an opponent controls 3,000 damage, or choose one job Archfiend from the break zone and add it to your hand. So he gets to do one of those things each turn when Golbez attacks.
Okay.
So you need it to be getting in there, but fortunately it's currently a 10,000 power guy, and if you've seen a couple of rounds already, you get the idea that 10,000 is a pretty hard hitter.
Tanky,
That's as big as guys get. Cool, so these are the Archfiends that come back. This one has a cool ability, the Living Dead ability with other copies of this card.
Yeah.
So
Archfiend is the type of
it's the type of creature that it is, essentially.
Scarmilone, I think, if I'm not murdering my Italian. But yeah. So I guess it is that case of now. Oh, he's managed to break the Golbez there.
Yep, with a Vivi.
Final Fantasy IX memories flooding back in. I think it actually just landed on the PlayStation Network store for those who haven't played it, so worth a look there. Do you find there's a lot of crossover with the game fans coming into the card game, or is it still a card gamers kind of game?
It's closer to a card gamer's game, but there is similarity, so it's easy to kind of explain a game, explain what's going on. The art is all taken directly from the game, which is really nice in a sense of it's then relatable. That they've seen these characters, they've seen this art, they've seen it. It's not a totally new experience. And then the gameplay kind of feels a little bit Hearthstone-y, a little bit Magic, a little bit like it's a blend of quite a few things. Even some of like the Japanese TCGs have a similar kind of flip deal damage. Pokemon kind of has a similar damage system, so there's bits and pieces taken, but it has this like very fast, very fluid kind of play style. Drawing 2 cards a turn gives you lots of access to do.
Well, I guess that is a big difference there. Is like actually having that 2, because it just instantly increases your options. You know what I mean? Like you've literally doubled the amount of options that may be available to you based on you pick up from the get go. So
and you're also forcing people into action by having this 5-card limit of hand that they constantly need to be doing stuff because they can't hold on to resources. So you can just straight up, so you get, say you got 6 at the end of the round, you can just go, all right, well, I got to get rid of 1, I'll just get rid of this. You don't, it's not a particular thing. You move into essentially a discard phase and you get rid of one of your cards.
Right, so it's a different Vivi up on the field there now.
Yeah, so our Vivi before is 4,000 damage plus 1,000 damage for each card in your hand. So if Nick's playing a control game and has 5 cards in hand, then we can see why his 10,000 power dude gets whacked.
So this is a bit more of a sacrificial Vivi where it can break and then deal 8,000 damage, which is I guess that'd be pretty handy as well. But we're on 3-3 damage wise. Nick's just managed to take another point there off Adam.
Yep. We have a slight resource advantage in like more backups on one side, but we have a lot more threats coming from Nick's deck currently. Nick's down to I think a couple cards in hand. Adam has 4 cards at the moment.
Right, so a bit of a sacrifice there, but he's managed to take down the Archfiend there, the Scalamone. comes the negotiation process.
Yep,
He
we're
does it,
fighting,
takes it
fighting
out.
resources back and forth. I think this is pretty good for Nick. I think he's kind of ahead on cards here, and he's just kind of waiting out to see what his options are. It definitely feels like Adam's deck needs to keep applying the pressure, needs to force
Yeah.
the game.
Yeah, well,
Nick's kind of got a lot of cards that are reactionary cards.
Well, yeah, Nick's deck strike, like you say, with that control deck, he's happy to sit back and let you kind of, let himself build up to the point where he's comfortable attacking. Whereas, it seems there's a bit more of a clock ticking for Adam on this one.
One of the other things that's unique about Archer and unique about the backups is you can only have 5 backups in play. After you have 5 backups in play, you can't play any more backups. So they're kind of dead cards. The only way you can get more backups in play is by sacrificing one of your backups, which only specific backups can do that. They can break themselves for a cool ability.
Okay.
So it's like a virtual card advantage where the card turns into a resource later, and then you can redeploy more backups.
So handing back over to Adam now.
So that affects kind of core special, assuming you've got like backups that come into play and deal damage, you've got backups that blow other backups up, you've got a whole bunch of interaction kind of going on with the backups, which is this like secondary battle that's kind of the resource battle that's going on.
Yeah. There's an ace up as well, so that's Adam
Works
forward
with the
there.
other cadets.
Type 0 rip.
Yeah, and then he goes looking for more cards off the special ability. Basically goes looking for more job cards. So it stops the cards, some of the special abilities stop the cards from having redundancy because you can't have 2 of the same named champion in play. A hero.
So
Character's the correct term.
I guess
Character
that's
for
the
backup,
thing. So you couldn't have, say, 2 clouds sitting there, but you could use a cloud in your hand as a resource, for example. Like
yes.
you were doing before.
Some of the cards have a symbol in the top right, which is like 3 little cards, symbols that you can have more than 1 copy in play. But generally speaking, most of the cards are characters that are the best cards in the game currently, and so we generally don't have a huge amount of that going on.
So he clears out both forwards there.
And then he's moving to... No, he's not moving to second main phase, he's just going to end of turn. I thought we saw a stop there.
It's been our longest match so far, to be honest. The guys are taking their time.
I think it's probably also, got to do with seeing a control deck that's trying to really get the game into this stalled thing. We're seeing a lot of cards in both players' hands and them both kind of working out what they want to do at this point in the game.
If you do get to the point where you run out of like cards in your like unpulled deck, is that like another victory condition? Someone's got to stop kicking our camera.
When you go to draw a card from your deck, if you cannot draw a card from your deck, you lose the game.
Okay, so that's another win condition there.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess the pressure is there on as well. So if he keeps burning people, then it's much easier to do. Big deck of Archfiends, another Archfiend there. That's 4, isn't it?
It's 4?
Yeah.
Sorry, what do you mean
Oh,
by
I'm just
it's
from which game?
Oh,
they're from.
yeah.
I'm just picking
Yes,
from the art.
sorry.
I'm just basing it on art, honestly.
Yep. It tells you in the right-hand corner what set the cards are coming
Actually, I do
from, what
remember
game
seeing
they're
Type
coming
0
from.
on the other one, yeah.
Generally, most of the clans have some synergy between them.
Yeah.
So we've got Archfiends on one side, and we've got some jobs and other stuff on
Well,
the
we
other side.
saw obviously Adam had the Type 0 deck which was looking for more cadets, and so there was a few Type 0 cadets in his hand there.
So I think Nick has 7 cards in hand, so he's forced into some action.
So
At
either,
this
he,
point
so
in
he
the
can
game?
either play them or he can put them. He can.
Well,
discard.
he's not going to discard them
Okay.
because that's a disadvantage of his resource. Like he's saving up the cards to do cool things with them. He's not just going to let them go without getting an advantage out of the cards. So that's a really unlikely outcome that he moves the discard without doing anything.
So
It almost doesn't really happen. People just spend their resources unless they
I guess why not?
forget, and the other person's like, it's your end of turn, and you know. So you got two 7,000 power guys running into each other.
So that's
they might both be pumped up off the backups and off the Maria. And there's an archer, so that's the backup that's going to break other backups.
Yeah. So with that, so as they attack, so if your card is 7,000 and the other card is 7,000, it's like Hearth where they wipe each other out.
Yeah,
kind of thing?
they're both dealing damage equal to their power.
Yeah.
Their power and their defense is essentially one statistic.
Yeah. Okay. And there's our little archer friend there.
So sometimes when your opponent can't break any of their backups and you have access to break backups, that's kind of cool. Gives you some ability to do things that...
It also means if they are relying on a particular card to come out or a set of cards, you can at least chip away that advantage as well.
Well, sometimes they can't even draw that card. Sometimes they need to draw a backup, but they don't have access to the backup. So sometimes you might not even want to blow their backups up from Nick's side, but the next one he plays might lock him into what things he can play. He obviously has the advantage of he gets to play... If he blows it up, he chooses the timing.
Yeah.
And then he chooses what he does with those extra resources and those extra bits and pieces.
And again, and that's what he wants. Like that's the idea of that control is to just kind of...
So there's a Shinoto, that's our Wrath. So just for one creature. So definitely that this game's going deep should be good for the control deck. You can kind of see where at a parity of resources, I think Nick's probably slightly ahead on cards because he's about to draw 2 cards which will take him up to 6. Like they've got 4 cards in hand each. They're just kind of waiting around to play the next moves and see where the game develops to.
He's doing the math. You know the math faces, you can just see him start pointing it out.
I think the idea of drawing 2 cards and being forced to play cards, so on the next turn, Adam goes up to 6 cards in hand, he is forced into action. You know, he's, as you said, they're not going to discard cards, so, you know, it kind of changes some of the things that we're doing.
So is that just a general check of what's in his break zone there, or like are you allowed to do that, or is it just specific?
Yeah, it's public knowledge.
Yeah.
So the same as your backups and things like that. Like you can't cover your resources up, you can't cover your abilities up. There's some different things around the rules and the information that you have to give to your opponent. So we've just seen the Singleton Sephiroth from Nick's deck. And a Golbez. So Golbez is reduced by the Archfiends. So currently he's being cast for free because he's reduced by 2 for each Archfiend in the graveyard, and he was probably counting how many Archfiends he had in his graveyard to see how much his Golbez was going to cost. So that's kind of like he's put like his kind of big force out on the table, and now Adam has a chance to respond to this. And I expect them to kind of throw down a little bit at the moment. So dealing some damage to each of them. And then he's finishing it off.
And so that's his 3rd Golbez out then, I think it was.
It's his 3rd Golbez. And then the Vivi to deal more damage to Sephiroth. So we've had drop of 2 big guys, responded by removal spell using a backup, and then another removal spell in Vivi, which hits for 4,000 plus the amount of cards in hand.
So he's
and you can see now we're a resource parity, like a resource advantage to one side over the other, but no real guys on the table.
Yeah.
So kind of trading blows in this game.
It'll be interesting. It's been fisticuffs really, compared to the other ones, which were a bit more, you know, one side got what they wanted to do. This has been a little bit more back and forth.
So it'll be interesting to see if Nick starts trying to challenge his resources now with the Archer. if he goes down that path, so there we go. Oh, he's thinking about it. If he goes down this kind of route, he's probably going to start taking some damage. So he's discarded a card from hand, so he's got more plays this turn, or in his opponent's turn, and that's a Ruby count.
So, I mean, yeah, obviously Nicky's going for that control style. Has he got enough mojo in his deck still to do anything here, or do you
I think he still does. We're starting to fight a bit of a cripple battle.
Yeah, it's more of attrition at this
We've
point.
definitely blown up a lot of each other's resources, and like that last turn cost Adam a lot of his setup.
Yeah.
To get to a point where he could fight this battle where he could take those creatures out, and Nick's throwing down more guys in the way. So it might turn into kind of a small creature battle in the end.
I was
If
gonna
the
say,
Golbers
yeah,
are all
it's-
gone, it might just be stumbling over the line.
It's just this
for,
war of
for them
war of
both.
attrition. It'd be interesting to see how many cards they've each got left, because the shadow's slightly getting bigger on the the death stacks now.
Yeah, I don't think they've really drawn any additional cards. So the only player that would run out of cards would be the player that went second, I presume, would run out first because they're drawing two. Another person's no, it'd be the player who goes first because he draws one on his first turn, then two on his second turn. So he'll run out of cards at least a turn before if there's no additional cards drawn from the decks.
He did burn the Ifrit there to finish off the Rubicon there, and so it's interesting to see what he's doing with his summons and things like that.
So you can see now he has to get a 4-drop creature into play, he has to discard a card for the 2 crystal points plus his 2 backups. So Nick can now be more efficient with his resources because he has 4 backups.
Yeah.
And if he gets another archer onto the field, he might keep trying to attack those resources and see if he can kind of come up in front just by attacking the resources and end up with getting to play every character from his hand that can attack while his opponent can't.
Takes a point of damage there. Takes 2. No, it's his turn
1 point
done.
of damage.
So yeah, it really is down to, like, you know, the boxes are down and they're gasping for breath, but they're still swinging. So
Yeah, they're definitely playing the smaller guys now, and there we go. That's the game.
So he's just taken that one with 3 damage there, or
Yeah, I think we got to a board state where basically Adam knows he can't win, so he's conceded the
conceding.
game at that point.
so for score point of view, does it count as a 3-4 still win to Nicholas, or do we consider that as still a full 7-point
Well,
loss?
let's see how they fill out their slip.
Yeah. He's covering it with his hand. It's a surprise to everyone. That's a 3-4. If I'm reading that properly. The great thing about cameras is they're good at
it's
shooting distance, but they're not good at shooting up close.
It's a tick to Adam on the win. What happened there?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think because he hit the end of his deck.
Oh, he decked.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so when he went to draw, he couldn't draw any more cards, and that's the end of things.
So it'll only count as a 3-4 then, or
Yeah, it counts as the damage that's been dealt so far in the game.
Okay. So if you deck someone, you still get the win, but you obviously haven't inflicted 7 points of damage.
Yeah, so that's going to work in your tiebreakers later in the day where you're like, well, how much damage have I dealt? And so that's one of the resistances that we look at when people are on similar points.
Yeah.
So different decks are kind of disadvantaged by that style of
Well, if they're breaking
breakdown, I
things
guess.
yeah. If they're breaking their own cards, then it's counting as a point of damage against them, which could hurt them when it comes to the
Yeah,
finish line.
definitely. So some of the choices in the decks that you play then affect some of those things. So you've probably got to be more comfortable on a control deck than you do on an aggressive deck, because you're going to cause more damage probably with your aggressive deck. So it's a consideration, but the control players play control, the aggro players play aggro. You look towards the decks that you think are best or that make the most sense to your play style, or you look down any of those paths that you can, and you generally find what works for you.
Easy enough. All right, Aaron, we're going to take a break for round 4. That was Adam beating Nicholas on that one.
By decking.
By decking. So there you go. He decked him. That's Australian is as sentence as you get, I think. Thank you, Aaron. We'll hopefully see you later in the day. But for now, we'll go to a quick break.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.